Hello and welcome to a new video. Today I am going to be doing my September one-take wrap-up. It is October 1st, September is over. If you don't know, my one-take wrap-ups are where I tell you all the books I read in the month, but I do it in one take so I don't have to edit these videos, so let's get started. I had a pretty decent reading month for September. I did a themed readathon. I did not put any pressure on myself for this, but it was like a Taylor Swift themed readathon I did with a big group on Bookstagram. Anyway, first, this was not for the readathon, I finished Death by Coffee by Alex Erickson, a cozy mystery. Really enjoyed it. I loved the mystery aspect. I loved the potential romance aspect. The only thing that I did not like, and I don't know if this comes from this being a slightly older book. It was published in 2015. I don't know if it comes from, I think this author is a guy. It is. I did feel like there were one too many comments on bodies. Like oh, she was a really skinny lady, or she'd be like, oh, I need to go to the gym. And I was like, okay, we maybe don't need to talk about this so much. But other than that, I did really enjoy the mystery. I liked the main character. I liked the coffee shop. It was a cute little place, and I will continue the series. It looks like a lot of fun. I gave it a 4 stars. Next, probably my favorite book of the month, I read I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy. This is my first nonfiction of the year, and frankly will probably be my last nonfiction of the year. This is one of the few books I've written like a full review on Goodreads. Like, there's a bunch of stuff on here. I loved this book. It was probably one of the most difficult books I've ever read, in that the content is very heavy, but it's written with such honesty and such humor, not in a way that is like flippant, that is putting down or making this these events in her life less significant, but it's told just honestly and like with such humor that fits the story. And I've watched a lot of interviews and podcasts that she's been on talking about her experience in her life and this book, and she talks about how she's able to kind of capture this humor because a lot of the story, all of the story really, she tells from the point of view of herself at the time, and because so much of this story happens when she's a child, there's this naivety that creates humor in these situations. Like, the story she tells a lot in the interviews is like, to her at the time, seeing her mom chase her dad around with a knife was normal, but us looking back, we see that's not normal, obviously, but seeing it through the lens of a child who thinks that's normal brings this really weird but interesting humor to it. So I loved this book. I will be buying a physical copy. I have not been able to get my hands on one just quite yet. But this, I have no words on it. I have a whole review written on here, but it was just incredible. If you do need trigger warnings, either you can reach out to me, I will tell you all about them, or the majority of them are in my Goodreads review and lots of other people's reviews. So 5 out of 5 stars. Read this book. It's incredible. There's a reason it's such a bestseller right now. So yeah, that might be one of my best books of the year, for sure, best of the month. Next, I read Well Suited by Stacey Hart. This book, it was okay. It was okay. I read this for the readathon. It's a romance. And I also just read it because it was an accidental pregnancy trope, which I do love. But this one isn't necessarily one that I would recommend. Other people might like it better than I did. It was not a bad book. It just wasn't entirely one that I connected with. I liked the hero character a lot. I didn't really care for the heroine all that much. The way she approached situations were it just didn't make any sense to me. Her character did not make a lot of sense to me. And I also felt like it was very obvious that this character was like coded to be not neurotypical, and yet it was never really addressed in the story, so I was just a little confused. So but the writing was not my favorite. I didn't feel a lot of connection between the characters, and then I think one of the biggest parts that kind of messed with my enjoyment of it is I listened to the audiobook and I really hated the narrator, so that kind of messed with how much I liked the book. But I gave it a 3 stars. I didn't hate it, but I definitely didn't love it. Someone else might like it better than me, though. Next, another romance I read, Can't Escape Love by Alyssa Cole. This was, I think, my 3rd Alyssa Cole book. I might be wrong about that, but I think it is. And it's the 3rd one, and I feel the same as the other ones. They are just okay. I have really tried to get into Alyssa Cole books because I feel like so many people love her books, and I haven't liked any of them. I don't hate any of them, but all of them I've had a really hard time caring about the characters. Like, I just haven't connected with their love story. I will say this is a novella, so that, you know, does kind of come with its own problems sometimes with being able to connect with the characters because it's such a short story. But yeah, I liked, you know, some aspects of this story. I liked how the characters came together. I thought it was a really unique way for 2 characters to meet. He used to do live streams where he would talk through these puzzles, and she would watch them, and she loved the sound of his voice, and it would help with her insomnia. And I thought that was a really interesting meet cute, but then everything after that I was just like, oh, I don't know if I care about any of this. It did have some really good representation. The main heroine is a wheelchair user, but character-wise, I just didn't really care for anyone. I don't know what it was, so I did give it a 3 stars. It wasn't the worst book I've ever read. There's nothing bad in it that made me hate it. It just wasn't really for me. Next, I read Kingdom of the Wicked by Carrie Maniscalco. We all know how I feel about Carrie Maniscalco, okay? She's one of my all-time favorites. No one is surprised that I absolutely adored this book. It was a 5 stars. I love Amelia. I love Wrath. I will say this was a little more fantasy heavy than I was anticipating, but regardless, I loved the book. I love this character. I have a whole reading vlog on this book if you're interested in checking it out. It will be the video before this one. And I loved it. I loved it. It's Carrie Maniscalco. Who am I to say anything? I love the witchiness. I love the fall vibes. I'm currently reading the 2nd one. I'm very excited to see what happens in the 3rd one as well. Yeah, I loved it. I don't need to say any more about that. Okay. Next, I loved this next book a lot less. So I read Happily This Christmas by Susan Mallory. On Goodreads, I did give it a 3 stars. In retrospect, I would probably rate it a 2 stars, but I'm not going to change my rating and, you know, mess with her ratings on Goodreads. It's not really worth that. I actually have a physical copy of this book. I listened to it on audio, though, but the physical copy I will almost definitely unhaul. There was nothing super bad about this book. It was just incredibly boring, and it wasn't really a romance. It was a very scattered plot line. If it was just the parents, it was 2 single parents meeting each other and falling in love, their neighbors, I think I could have gotten behind that story. But it was almost like so much more focus was put on the hero's daughter. So the daughter was grown. She was like 24 or something. And she's expecting her first baby. Her husband is in the military, which the police and military being in this book will move past the propaganda. But she was just the most annoying character I've ever read. And I don't know, she got a point of view in this book. This is a romance book. I should be reading the heroine and the hero. Why do I care about this girl? I don't. That was my problem. And she was just whining and crying about everything, and I couldn't figure out why. She was being so terrible to her dad. I just did not like her character and why she treated her father like she did, and her explanation made no sense. She was like, my dad didn't pay attention to me, and all he did was pay attention to her. And the one time he was gone, he was literally on an undercover mission as a cop. Like, if you're gonna have an excuse to leave, that's an excuse to leave. Like, and she was just always crying and being mean to everyone, not just her dad. She was, I don't know, it was the worst. I really hated her. 2 stars is frankly generous. Anyway, let's move on. I read Temptation by Ivy Smoke. This was a recommendation on KU from a friend of mine that I just found out reads romance books. I'm so excited. This was it good? I don't know if I could call it that. I gave it a 4 stars. Did I thoroughly enjoy it? Yes. This is a professor-student romance. She is 19. I think he was 27. So age gap as well. And it's very much giving 50 Shades of Grey, but like professor-student instead. And, you know, there's not a red room, but like the power dynamic and like the healthy parts of the relationship resemble very much 50 Shades of Grey. Therefore, not exactly a healthy relationship, but damn fun to read. So I had a lot of fun reading this book. Was the heroine kind of annoying sometimes with how immature she acted? Yes. But the drama, it was so fun. It was so good. And it ended on a big cliffhanger. That was the only part I didn't like. I tend to like my romances to be isolated into one book. This, I'm realizing, is a book series that follows the same characters the whole time, but I think I'm just invested enough to at least read book number 2, so we will see. And then lastly, I read this book in literally a day. It is The Vampire Knitting Club by Nancy Warren. Books with Samantha here on YouTube has a cozy mystery book club that I found out about the day before. One day I will have enough money to get a camera that doesn't randomly shut off while I'm recording. I don't know where I left off, but anyway, I was reading The Vampire's Knitting Club, whatever it's called. That was my last book of the month. I really enjoyed it. Lots of fun. I've never read a paranormal cozy before, but I really liked it. Some of the people in the live show mentioned they didn't love the main character. I didn't really mind her. Some of the people in the live show were saying she felt a little bit judgy. I didn't notice that, which I'm wondering, does that make me judgy? Did I not notice because she made the same judgments I probably would have? I don't know. But I will say the one thing I didn't like and why I did knock it off a star is she does accept the fact that vampires and witches exist way too fast. She doesn't question anything. She's more surprised that her grandma was turned into a vampire than the fact that vampires exist. And I just was like, well, I feel like I would have questions, and she didn't. So other than that though, it really leans into the coziness of it, and I'm very much looking forward to reading the sequel. I've rented it already. I am hoping to pick it up very, very soon. So that is what I read in the month of September. Like I said, a fairly good reading month, although now that I'm looking back, I feel like I didn't rate any books very high, but it's fine. I read 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 books. Pretty good. I'm not mad about that. I feel like I didn't do as many audiobooks this month. I don't know what I did. But I had some favorites. Kingdom of the Wicked was definitely a favorite of the year. I'm Glad My Mom Died is like top 3 favorite of the year. So I had a good reading month in that respect. But I hope you enjoyed my wrap up. Like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. And I will talk to you guys next time. Bye.